If you follow education at all, you've probably heard about the reading wars. It feels like everyone has a strong opinion on how we should be teaching kids to read. Well, today we're going to cut through the noise. We're using the 2025 What's Hot in Literacy survey as our guide to really unpack what's going on, the big trends, the conflicts, and what it all means. So let's dive in.
Yep, for the first time in a long time, literacy is getting this huge national spotlight. Which, that sounds like a good thing, right? But the researchers behind this survey call it a perfect storm. Because on one hand, yeah, it's a massive opportunity to get things right. But on the other hand, the field is just incredibly divided. It's full of conflict.
So that leads us right to the big question we're tackling today. With all this conflict, what are these fights really about? And who, or what, is driving the conversation? We're about to find out.
Okay, so how do we know what's actually hot? Well, our insights today come from a super systematic source, the annual What's Hot in Literacy survey. And this thing has been tracking trends for 28 years, so they know what they're doing. And listen, this isn't some random online poll. The whole thing is built on deep, one-on-one interviews with a panel of 25 international literacy leaders. We're talking about the top researchers and educators, the people who live and breathe this stuff every single day.
The way they do this is really important to understand. First, they talk to the experts about 29 different topics in literacy. Then, and this is key, they ask them to rank each one as hot or not hot, based only on how much attention it's getting. Not whether they like it, just is it being talked about. But then comes step 3, the kicker. They also ask if a topic should be hot or should not be hot. And that little difference is where we find the real story.
All right, so with that in mind, let's get to the good stuff. What do these 25 experts say was actually hot this year? What's everyone talking about?
Well, 3 topics were just off the charts. Every single expert, that's 100% consensus, agreed these were extremely hot. You've got banned books, which is a huge political firestorm right now. Then you have phonics and phonemic awareness, the basics of sounds and letters. And finally, the big one you've probably heard of, the science of reading.
Now, if we go down just a notch to very hot, we find these 6 topics. We're talking AI, dyslexia, social justice, all important stuff. But look at that last column. For every single one of these, the experts said, yes, this should be hot. They believe these topics absolutely deserve the attention they're getting. Remember that as we go forward. Because this is where the story takes a critical turn. The survey shows a huge disconnect. Just because a topic is getting a ton of attention, it doesn't mean the experts think that attention is actually helpful. In fact, they're warning that some of the hottest trends might be, well, pretty misguided.
Let's use the science of reading as the perfect example. I mean, just look at this timeline. In 2020, it pops up as very hot. The very next year, it shoots up to extremely hot, and it stayed there for 3 years straight. It is, without a doubt, the dominant conversation in reading education.
And yet, here is the twist. For those exact same 3 years that it's been at the top of the charts, the expert panel has consistently said the science of reading should not be hot. Think about that. The most talked about topic in the entire field is one that top experts think is getting the wrong kind of attention. It's a massive contradiction.
I mean, that's the million-dollar question, right? Why on earth would they say that the most popular, seemingly positive movement shouldn't be so popular? And the answer they give is so important. It's not because they're anti-science. Their big worry, captured right here in this quote, is that the public conversation about the science of reading has become almost entirely about one thing, and one thing only, phonics. And this super intense, narrow focus is completely overshadowing everything else.
So what gets pushed aside? Well, while all the oxygen is being sucked up by phonics, really critical things like teaching older kids, adolescent literacy, have actually dropped off the hot list. Same goes for things like comprehension, building up a kid's knowledge about the world, and maybe the most important thing of all, actually fostering a love of reading. The experts are basically screaming that all of these pieces are essential too.
So to really understand this conflict, we've got to zoom out. It turns out this whole debate isn't actually new. This fight over the science of reading is really just the latest battle in a much older, much deeper philosophical war in the world of literacy.
At its very core, this whole thing boils down to 2 fundamentally different ways of thinking about how kids learn to read.
So on one side, you have content-focused approaches. You can think of this as curriculum-centered. The idea is to have a very structured, step-by-step program that every single student follows. The science of reading movement is the biggest example of this today.
Then, on the other side, you have child-focused approaches, which you might know as balanced literacy. This philosophy is all about tailoring the teaching to the individual needs of each student as they go, drawing from a much wider range of research to see what works for that kid right now.
So what's the big takeaway here? Well, the report's authors aren't picking a side. Their main point is a plea to move beyond these endless wars. They argue that the goal shouldn't be for one side to win, but for us to use all the research, the whole toolbox, to actually serve the diverse needs of every single student.
And that really leaves us with this final critical question to think about. This powerful push to find a single, scientifically proven best way to teach reading, it's really compelling. But what this report forces us to ask is this. In our search for that one right answer, are we in danger of forgetting the one thing that matters most? The individual child sitting right there in the classroom.